Hey everyone, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today we are talking about big tech and the platforms that we use, because almost nobody here really thinks that they are going to be able to help us combat things like misuse of their platform. And I think the long-term repercussions of this are rather staggering. Now, here's what's going on, and this is coming from new Pew Research as it relates to the 2020 election, but we're going to dig a little bit deeper after I get through Pew's research. Now, 3/4 of U.S. adults say that the tech companies have a responsibility to basically prevent the misuse of their platforms to influence the 2020 presidential election, but only around 25% say that they are very or somewhat confident in them actually doing this. Now, according to Pew Research Center, on a survey that was conducted between July 27th and August 2nd, this is where this is coming from. And this survey comes as Facebook and other major tech companies are making efforts to attempt to limit political misinformation ahead of the November U.S. presidential election. Now, since 2018, majorities of Americans have said that tech companies like Facebook, Twitter, Google, etc. have a responsibility to prevent misuse of their platforms to influence the election. However, when you start breaking it down along political lines, it gets interesting. The share of Republicans and Republican-leaning independents who say tech companies have this responsibility has actually declined since this January, from 75% saying they have this responsibility down to 64%. Among Democrats and Democrat-leaning independents, an overwhelming majority continues to say that tech companies are indeed responsible for preventing misuse of their platforms. That is at 85% as of this report, and in January it was at 81%. So it went the opposite way. Now, there is a much wider partisan gap on whether social media companies should label posts by elected officials and ordinary users as inaccurate or misleading, according to a separate survey that they conducted at Pew in June of this year. Democrats are far more likely than Republicans to say social media companies should do this kind of labeling. In a more recent survey, 73% of adults say that they are not too confident or not at all confident in technology companies like Facebook, Twitter, and Google to prevent misuse of those platforms for the 2020 election, and about 27% say they are at least somewhat confident or have no confidence at all. Now, here are my thoughts on this. Because these platforms are overwhelmingly where we as Americans and most of the world gets their news, this is deeply concerning because it speaks to, I think, a deeper issue that we have against them combating misinformation, for example, or trolls or state-sponsored attacks, and continues to drive a wedge into, let's say, this growing political divide that we have here in the United States. When we have one side saying, yes, let's label absolutely everything, and another side that is starting to decline to say, no, we shouldn't be labeling anything, we end up having some kind of disparity, but we also end up having essentially two different kinds of realities. One that might be based in facts, the other that might be based in misinformation that is viewed as a fact. Now, I am not calling out anybody here. I have personally, in my own research, seen misinformation coming from all sides of the political spectrum. I don't care who you vote for, what you do. As I've said a million times, my job is agnostic to politics here, and I have seen misinformation campaigns that have targeted both the left and the right sides of the political spectrum. But this speaks to a deeper problem in the sense that these platforms, where again we get a lot of our news and information, are between a rock and a hard place. They either can really annoy one side of the aisle that might leave them or stop using them because they are labeling, and the other side of the aisle will leave them if they don't. So this is a very serious problem, but we have to figure out a way to get on the same page in terms of facts. We all have to agree that the facts are the facts, and from there we can then have our own interpretation of these facts. And the problem that we have is that the facts that we are getting sometimes are not actually facts as well. They might be hyperbolic, they might be poisoned, we might not be getting facts, or we might be getting accurate facts, but there's so much hyperbole wrapped around it that it becomes a very serious issue. And so that is basically your news of the day. I thought this was very interesting. This is very concerning in the long run because, quite frankly, I think with the amount of data that is posted, just billions and billions and billions of posts, streams, everything every day, how a Facebook or a Google or a Twitter is possibly going to keep up with that is beyond me. And how they do that, basically by applying artificial intelligence and all of that, may end up with some false positives, and maybe that's something that we just have to be okay with. Otherwise, we may have an entire electorate that is simply getting false or incorrect information. So there you go. Again, don't care who you vote for. Not getting into the politics of this. I'm talking about Pew's research that is looking at both sides of the political aisle. And I think we've got some serious issues and some serious reconciliation to do. And so that is your news of the day. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe and stay online, and please stay accurate. Thanks, everyone.